We continue to hold in our thoughts and prayers the wider world and pray for peace and hope in the midst of the ongoing Israel-Gaza conflict. O God of all hope and peace, we bring to you the needs of our broken and hurting world. Our hearts are breaking with images of lives lost and torn apart by grief in Israel and Palestine. We pray for an end to violence and warfare so that the challenging work of rebuilding may begin. Help us, O Lord, to affirm our common humanity so that in our differences we may build together for justice and peace. And as we have prayed for peace for our world, we pray for peace for ourselves, our homes, our families, our colleagues. Heavenly Father, thank you for every seat that has been filled here today. Mine. Strengthen our confidence in who you have made. Set us free from comparison in order to work together efficiently. And as we approach this festive season, bless this meeting, all those present, as well as the lives of those we will encounter afterwards. We ask this in God's name. Amen.
Amen. You may sit.
Thank you, Chairman. We have an apology for absence from Councillor Powell.
Thank you, David. I'll just repeat that again. We move on to item 3 to approve as a correct record the minutes of the previous meeting. This item is only to determine the accuracy of the minutes, not the discussions. Anybody got any comments, please? No. Therefore, the minutes are approved. We then come to, which you're probably all waiting for, my announcement. My report is succinct and brought about following deep consideration of this council and its operation, particularly over the last few weeks. I would like to take this opportunity to apologise to you all for any embarrassment my incident some 4 months ago may have caused you with all the unnecessary but deliberate publicity from LDC. I am sure you are all aware of the situation, but I want to confirm in person that the expression spoken was not intended to be insulting, derogatory, disrespectful, or offensive in any way. The expression was widely used in public, in film and on TV, and was part of what regard as a brief.
I don't think you can say that, Julie.
I will carry on. I will carry on with you. So the expression was widely used in public, in film and on TV, and was part of RDC have humiliated and denigrated me. The incident and the publicity generated by the council officer's press release and information supplied to the media by other council members.
Chairman,
As a
point
result
of order,
of
please.
publicity
Point of order, Chairman,
For the
please.
council and
Point of
humiliation
order,
of me,
Chairman.
my family.
Point of order, Chairman. You're making comments about officers that they're unable to respond to, and I think that's totally inappropriate and totally unfair. I would also suggest that making the excuse that the expression that you used, which I think was highly offensive and highly inappropriate, the fact that it's used elsewhere on television or whatever, does not exonerate you from the fact that you used that comment.
However, this situation has laid my family and I some perspective, allowing us to realise the majority of my weekends and social time were heavily constrained and monopolised by the commitments of the chairman's role. That can be seen by the unprecedented number of engagements I have attended during my time as chair so far. I've been honoured to serve as chairman, and I have carried out the role and responsibilities of chairman to the best of my ability and with honour and dignity. The actions, by the way, this has been dealt with, has been a matter to make my position untenable, and it is with much sadness I've decided to step down from my role as chair tonight. I will continue to oversee the election of new officers. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. If you've resigned as the chair of council, you've resigned as the chair of council. We have a vice chair to step up in exactly this circumstance. So I don't think it would be proper or indeed constitutional for you to continue to chair a meeting subsequent to a resignation.
Over to you.
On this issue, the vice chair can't take over because if he is to be nominated, he would then have to stand down. Because as a nominee, he wouldn't be able to preside over the election. If I could just add to that, he wouldn't be continuing in his role as chair of council, but in his role as presiding over the meeting.
Okay, we will move on. Lost the page.
You asked for nominations, Chair.
Yeah. Do we have any nominations for chair then, please? Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Former Chair. I'd like to nominate Councillor Professor Anne Hughes as chairman of this council. She's Professor Emerita of Early Modern History at the University of Kiel, and she describes herself as a historian by trade, which I think is indicative of the sort of can-do attitude that she takes. She doesn't wear her laurels very heavily. She makes sure that she rolls up her sleeves and gets on with work. Research work for Rosie's Plaques, for example, a history and art project that's nationwide, which saw the erection of plaques across the area for individuals such as Priscilla Poynton and Sabrina Sidney. You can Google them, or you can Google Rosie's Plaques. And the actual plaques are there because of Anne's hard work. You may have heard her recently on the Radio 4 programme Great Lives, where she was the expert witness on a programme about Gerard Winstanley, the political philosopher and religious reformer of the 17th century. He was a key individual in the Diggers, which I think will resonate with lots of people on my side, and was probably about the first Christian socialist. Anne's already made an impact as Mayor of Lichfield since she took that particular role. She cancelled the Mayoress's at-home afternoon tea event in order to develop a school uniform bank. So she was looking outwards towards the community that she represents rather than inwards. And by those efforts and those of colleagues, 250 children in this area were supported. And I'm told 6,000 tonnes of kilograms of carbon dioxide have been saved, which will no doubt please Councillor Wilcox. We all know her to be a very capable, principled, perceptive and conscientious person. And certainly when you're looking for a big job to be done, you ask a busy person. So I hope people will support my nomination of Councillor Anne Hughes as chairman.
Thank you, councillor. Do we have a seconder? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I second. I can't give a speech for that and what Sue's just given. I don't think it's working. I'll just try to get the voice. But yeah, I think someone might. It's not working. That's it. Sorry. Right. I second Professor Anne Hughes. I can't be quite so eloquent as Sue. Sorry, Councillor Woodward on this. But I think someone with the profile will be an outstanding asset to Lichfield District.
Thank you. Do we have any other proposals? Yes, councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Richard Holland, presently Vice Chair of this council, to take over as Chair of the council. I've not known Richard particularly long period of time, but I do know in the time I have got to know him before the elections what a hard-working individual he is. He's also been involved in lots of events outside of this council, furthering relationships between the youth and older people in the district and community. I think he'd make an excellent chair of this council, and wish him all the very best if he was to be successful this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Wilcox. Do we have a seconder?
Thank you, Chairman. I so second Richard Holland.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? So we've got two nominations here. So we will take it to the vote. And yes, councillor Robertson.
In the interest of making this happen a little more smoothly, can I suggest a name vote on this item?
That's up to these people below me. Is that okay? Yes?
We can undertake a name vote either at the request of the leader of the opposition or a majority of councillors.
Leader of the opposition. Councillor.
A show of hands.
Which are we going for?
They're just decided. So we're proceeding on a show of hands.
Okay,
In that case, Chair, we take it in alphabetical order, so it will be all those in favour of Councillor Holland as Chair.
right. We will take it in alphabetical order, so we will go with councillor Holland. All those in favour of councillor Holland, please. Thank you. Okay. And those in favour of councillor Hughes?
Sorry. Councillor Hughes is voting in favour of this. We would ask the candidates not to vote in favour themselves.
So that's okay.
It's 23. So we deduct one off each. So it's 21 and 23. Okay. 21, 23, but if she runs it, yes.
Councillor Mears, you raise your hand. Did you want to say something? Switch your microphone on, please.
The microphone's on, Chair.
I'll shout. Can I ask if the chair has a vote as well? And that's vote being counted.
Councillor Hughes, if you'd like to step forward here, please, and I'll address you with the chain. Needed two more. Yeah. This one's.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. I, Anne Hughes, having been elected to the office of Chair of the Lichfield District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to be guided by the Lichfield District Council Members' Code of Conduct in the performance of my functions in that office. 12th of December 2023. I'm a bit low down. If I could just say a few words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If I don't want to delay the meeting very, very long. Sorry, Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, and may I be one of the first to congratulate you as chair of this council. I'm sure and hope you'll enjoy the experience and what you bring to the role. Thank you. Chair, colleagues, I do not take any satisfaction in making the following statement regarding your predecessor as chair of this council. But I feel it necessary to speak out now, as I do bear some responsibility, as it was myself who nominated Councillor Cross to be our chair of council back in May of this year. I, along with my fellow ward councillor, were extremely disappointed when it became known that you were under investigation in relation to an alleged breach of the Member Code of Conduct. I, along with many colleagues here this evening, expected at that stage that you would have taken the decision to step back from public duties pending the outcome of that investigation, which would have allowed your deputy to continue in your absence. I was horrified that you did not take.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Councillor Wilcox, I'm being advised that that your contribution is not in order at this time. I don't know if anyone wants to. Councillor Woodward.
Chair, I realise that you've been advised that it's inappropriate, but I for one would like to hear Councillor Wilcox finish that statement if at all possible.
Do we need them to suspend standing? This is a baptism of fire, isn't it? But yeah, anyway. Councillor Marshall. Just
Thank you very much. May I also congratulate you very much on achieving this role here at Lichfield District Council. May I just say that I think the intervention there of the senior officer, Mark Hooper, was appropriate, and I think we should be guided by him. And I don't think it's for us members to corrupt the process here this evening. No, seriously, I think we should be guided by the senior officer. I really do. Thank you.
We're still on the election of chair. The next item is, I was going to say a few words on my own behalf and then was going to be the leader. I think.
Respond with what you was going to say due to your election.
Sorry?
I would say what you was going to say on your election.
I think that's what I'm advised, and I think perhaps we should leave it for the time being. I just wanted to say this is probably quite a surprise to everyone as well as myself, but I can at least reassure you that I'm very conscious of the honour and responsibilities of chairing the Lichfield District Council. As Councillor Woodward said, I have some experience as the chair of a nearby parish council, and I have to say that this has made me much less sceptical about the value of the ceremonial or representative role of a chair of council. And I look forward to learning much more about the wider district. And as to my competence, we'll have to wait and see. I have to say I've read the agenda very carefully, but I confess I read it initially with an adversarial eye rather than a procedural eye. And as my colleagues, you know, on that side of the house know, I love a good argument, but I'll be happy now to listen rather than join in. And I'm very grateful for the initial support this afternoon when this became a possibility, support of the officers. And I'm sure I'll be much more grateful at the end of the meeting. And I think we should come now to the business, which is, I think, the report of the leader.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And I thought I was going to be one of the first. I think I'm possibly the 9th or 10th now person to congratulate you on the, as you quite rightly say, the honour of being chair of this district council, and look forward to working with you over the coming months. Councillors, before I just move into the report, I thought it'd be befitting, considering as we come to the end of 2023, just to reflect back on the last 7 months. And it has really only been 7 months since the election in May. And actually, whilst I think it may be very easy for me to sit here and think how challenging the environment is politically, perhaps for myself, actually, I think what a wonderful and brilliant job councillors have done right across this district. I think it is a brilliant testimony to the councillors here in Lichfield District of how well we're working together, and that include people from all parties and none. When we look and speak to colleagues around the country, there are lots of no overall control councils in place at the moment, and actually some of them are really struggling with how they're working together. But actually, Lichfield District Council has worked very well together, and actually the key items and our key programme that we're trying to push through has not been stopped by political differences. We've had some really good, solid scrutiny, which is absolutely the right thing for us to be doing. It's been challenging, but it has never been to the detriment of our residents, and I think that's something that all of us should quite rightly be proud of. There were 6 commitments that we made, or manifesto commitments that we made back in May. 4 of those are firmly on track to be delivered in 2024. We look at the cinema investment that's coming tonight. We look at the leisure centre. We look at the disused railway turning into a greenway. We look at the design code. All of these items are designed to make our neighbours' lives better, our families' lives better, our lives better, and that's all something we should rightly be proud of. I think as a collective organisation, and I think together we will build something that we can be proud of, but our residents can be proud of. And I know that doesn't come about by accident; it comes about because of 47 individuals who give up their time freely and willingly. And sometimes surprisingly, to help build their communities. So thank you, everyone around this chamber for the work that you're doing to help do that. Chair, I'll move now into my report. First of all, cabinet decisions from the 5th of December. Item number 1 is money matters.
Woodward. Thank you, Chair. I'm perhaps stretching your discretion slightly by raising something on this particular issue, because it mentions 23-24 council tax collection, and so I want to respond, if I can, to Councillor Pullen's comments there. Yes, the results in May threw up a very different sort of council, a very different shape of council, a very different political landscape than we'd experienced for many a long year at Lichfield District Council. And I think to some it was quite a shock, and I think some are still trying to get used to that this is a no overall control council. It isn't the majority of 21 that the Conservative group had previously, where they could, as in Councillor Pullen's words, push through an agenda without any consideration of differing views. I found it really refreshing since May, coming back to this council after a 4-year absence. I found it really refreshing that now there is that collegiality, there is that working together, there is that making sure that we're making the best decisions for the benefit of the residents of our districts, and long may that continue. Of course, that can happen when there's an overall majority. It certainly hadn't happened in my experience here. So I do really welcome that working together and making sure that we're all working towards the benefit of the people that we represent and who elected us. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Number 2 then, I think.
Thank you, and I'll be happy to take any pertinent questions related to this point as well. Money Matters 23-24, financial monitoring. Number 3, future of the HR function.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Trent, I think, was first.
Oh, I was on item 3, is that?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and many congrats on your election. Through you, Chair, I just wanted to ask a question of the leader. Well, I support this item, the transfer of the HR function to LWMTS. It does seem a sensible move, and I'm sure we can all agree the need to avoid duplication in those functions. My question was just whether any review is taking place of other functions, because I have this slight niggling concern that a number of other functions will go the same way.
And I think Councillor Robertson, do you want to come? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, and secondly, for reassurance that this council will have proper scrutiny if that does take place. Thank you.
Councillor Robertson.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Trent, and of course to yourself, Councillor Hughes. And can I welcome you to the chair, as many colleagues have done so first. Can I also, because I know what I'm like, apologise in advance for at some point I know I'm going to call you mayor here and chair over the way. So apologies for that before I make that error. In relation to item 3, the future of the HR function, there is a question that came up during the employment committee minutes, and I know that's a separate item, but I'll be questioning Councillor Wilcox there and not yourself. One of the things that we are able to do as a council is amend the contracts of our employees on something like a disciplinary and grievance policy through collective agreement, because we have a collective agreement, we have a trade union recognition agreement in place. I'm currently aware that the LATCO doesn't have that available, so it doesn't have that method of updating and making those common sense changes that people can agree upon. So within that, can I ask what discussions you've had either with Councillor Wilcox following our discussions at Employment Committee, or with Councillor Farrell as our representative on the board of the LATCO, as to when the LATCO will be making a decision, and as it should be, and I'm sure everybody over this side of the Chamber's opinion, recognising a trade union so that we can seek to take advantage of those economies of scale and that ability to make common sense changes to contracts through collective agreement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chair, I'll take Councillor. Our people, well, let's start with the HR function. Our people are our greatest asset, right? And we've done lots in the last few months to improve both the culture here and the benefits that our employees are entitled to, including being one of the very first local authorities in the country to introduce private medical care to ensure that they can be adequately looked after, no matter what challenges or issues they might be facing in regards to their mental or physical health. We will always look for the most appropriate organisation to deliver our services for our residents the best. If that can be delivered through the LATCO in a better, cheaper way for our residents, then I firmly believe that we should look at the LATCO for doing that. If we think that the council is best placed to deliver that service, then we'll retain it within the council. Personally, I think we should always look at what is best value for our residents. And by best value, I don't just mean cheapest, but I mean what genuinely delivers the best value, whilst also protecting our employees in perpetuity as well, which is, of course, what we've done in terms of transferring any staff over to the LATCO. We will protect any rights that they've accrued within Lichfield District Council when they pay over to the LATCO. Turning to the issue of collective agreement under the LATCO, my personal view is that the flexibility that having a trading company gives us allows us to be more fleet of foot. It allows us to give fundamentally different terms to staff in that privately owned company. It allows us to move away from the nationally agreed pay scales so that we can actually pay people slightly more in the LATCO and perhaps contribute less to their pension, because perhaps they're at a different point in their career where perhaps they're more interested in receiving the money in a salary rather than in their pension. But that is a choice that we're making to give flexibility to both to our staff and to our organisation as well, to be able to compete with the private sector. There is not a local authority up and down the country that is not struggling with recruitment and retention of staff. We have said we're going to do things differently. I believe we are doing things differently. As I said, anybody who moves from the council to the LATCO will have their terms and conditions honoured in perpetuity. But if somebody wants to join the LATCO from day one and sign up to fundamentally different terms and conditions, then I believe we should allow them to do that. And that hasn't been a formal conversation with Councillor Wilcox or Councillor Farrell, to your point.
Supplementary from Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Just as a point of clarification, really, Councillor Pullen there has spoken about the decision that we made in setting up the LATCO to move away from the book, but not actually in relation. Councillor Pullen there has spoken about the decision that the LATCO has made to move away from the Green Book, but not actually about any decision or any discussions that have had about recognition agreement. Recognition agreement won't automatically come via the Green Book because the employees of the LATCO are not employed by a local authority. So much of the explanation that we received there was not pertinent to the question that was asked.
Right. Items 4 and 5.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 4, a cinema for Lichfield District update.
Thank you, Chair. Just in relation to your initial opening statement on this item, the leader did say that we were on track to deliver a cinema and a leisure centre in 2024. That's not true. So would you like to correct the record on that point?
Well, we can sit here and play semantics all night, and we will be in the process of delivering a cinema and leisure centre in 2024.
There'll be more on the cinema later, won't there? So item 5.
There will. Thank you, Chair. We're now on to Cabinet Member decisions. Item number 5, reviews of fees and charges.
Councillor Ray first.
Thank you. I'd just like the leader made us some initial comments when he stood to his feet about this agenda item, when he was talking about delivery, in inverted commas, of the leisure centre and the cinema. Yes, but that was the result of what happened in May, when the people's voice, our residents' voices were heard, translated into costs, translated into more councillors, opposition councillors in this chamber, and now we have some action with those projects. And with regards to item number 5, could I ask, and I had an exchange with Councillor Sylvester Hall at the last meeting about the variable signage. What is the date when it is going to go live? Not installation, not implementation, but what is the live date for this signage? We've been waiting for this for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to welcome you as a fellow member for Stowe in your position as Chair. Yes, about the parking. I would like some more information about the data that led to the level of charges in this report. I absolutely support sorting out the long stay and the short stay with greater incentive for long stay parkers to move to allow more capacity for short stay, and the 30-minute free parking. However, the report from the 23rd of October doesn't give any data about the impact of evening and bank holiday fees at the time when we're building up the evening economy in the city centre, and nor does it give any data about why those particular levels of charging were chosen. I understand about the overall envelope, but there's no information about that. So I would appreciate if myself and members could be given that information.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, can I just say, Councillor Ray, I have sat in this chamber for 10 years and I have never heard such a load of nonsense in 10 years. It was nothing to do with the people's voice that came out in May. It came through the hard work that our officers have been doing over longer than 12 months with commercial negotiations, with operators out in there in the real world, Councillor Ray, that are doing things that are incredibly complex. Yes, they take longer than we would all like, and I would be the first to admit that I regularly throw my toys out the pram over how long things are taking. But that's the reality of what we're trying to deliver here. That site has not seen activity for almost 2 decades. We are finally on the cusp of delivering something which our residents have been crying out for years and years and years. And yet the only comment you make about it tonight is a cheap political point. And personally, I'm quite disappointed. Anyway, back into the real world. The VMS, Councillor Ray, to your more substantive point, will be live in January 2024. And thank you for highlighting the VMS, because the variable message signage that we'll be installing, I think with 4 around the city, is really designed to help make it easier for people to find the car parking spaces that are there. We know we've got a multitude of car parking spaces that people don't use. They congregate straight towards Bird Street, which we all do. I do. Everyone does. There's far more spaces in the city, and actually getting people moving around the city and understanding where those free spaces are will be really helpful to movements around the city. Councillor Braga, to your point about the level of fees and when those fees are being introduced, it was benchmarking against the local authorities, that it was as simple as that there is no magic formula that there is to come up with these things. It's about keeping prices as low as we can, but also reflecting that there is no such thing as free car parking if we can make all the car parks free all the time. And I know this wasn't your point, but clearly we cars in the really good car parking space and making it difficult for other people. So I really welcome your support in terms of making it far more appealing to people if they're going to stay longer to park out in the multi-stories. And if you're just going to come in for a short period of time, usually 30 minutes free in the short stays, but otherwise perhaps use the long stays. Thank you, Chair.
There is one more
Sorry.
point, isn't there? Number 6.
There is. Thank you, Chair. My apologies. Item number 6 is the Infrastructure Funding Statement 2023 IFS. Please don't have any questions on that.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay, then we come to item 7, the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Can I call on Councillor Norman?
Thank you, Chair. If I go off script slightly, which is to welcome you to this new role of yours in the Chair, and make it clear that the book you gave me was many, many weeks ago before I knew this would be happening, so that did not influence my vote. The book, by the way, is on the way that history is recorded in Warwickshire, my home county. And also to say that welcome to not being adversarial, as is the case in my role of scrutiny, and I miss it terribly. Anyway, I submit the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of November 2023 and the special meeting held on the 30th of November 2023.
And do we have a seconder for those?
Of 14th of November.
And thank you, Councillor Whitehouse.
Yes, Chair, and I second the minutes of the 30th of November meeting.
Thank you.
Not very often you get 2 seconders, is it? So that's very good, that is. First one is present, and then 29 apologies for absence, 30 declarations of interest, 31 minutes of the previous meeting, 32 health, got different glasses on. Oh, hang on.
Oh, yeah.
Hang on. 32 health matters.
Sorry, yeah, Councillor Evans has a point on health matters.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations. And I must say that I'm particularly delighted to welcome a woman to the chair, because we haven't had one for quite a while now. So it's great that you are there. I know we are all aware that Burton and Derby Trust have been rated as inadequate, and as stated here in the on the minutes, that they are in difficulty recruiting and retaining staff. Therefore, in view of the problems that our area has encountered, and which I have spoken about in the past concerning the services at Samuel Johnson and across the district, can I urge both Councillor Cox and Young to keep a close eye on what is being provided to ensure residents' care is paramount, particularly in view of the anticipated winter surge. It is especially pertinent at the moment, as I was informed that last Friday there was no doctor available at Samuel Johnson, and people who required a consultation with the doctor had to go to either Good Hope or Burton. And surely this is completely unsatisfactory and not the kind of service that we expect to be provided by the NHS. Staff shortage is obviously a real problem, and it may become a reason to extinguish some services locally, such as maternity, which everybody will know I have gone on about on a number of occasions. I hope that is not the case, which is why our county council representatives must voice their concerns whenever the issue arises, and I hope that they will do so.
Thank you, Councillor Norman.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd recommend anybody to listen to the discussions at the Health Scrutiny Committee at the county recently. There was good information there on the reasons for the difficulty in getting staff, and I think very reasonable arguments there, and they are struggling with how to deal with that. And the other matters, we're going to make sure that health matters does have a priority at the future scrutiny committees, and I know that Sue Woodward has asked for a task group there. We're trying to sort that out. So I'll make sure that's then. I know that my vice chair, you may want to say something now. Keeps a good eye on things, and I'll invite if that's okay. If you,
Yeah,
Chair.
no, Councillor Liam.
So in last meeting, maternity was a topic which was raised, and our county members here have raised the issue in regards to Samuel Johnson. And we are still pushing for it. I have spoken to chair in regards to this as well. So if you look at the discussion which was online, that was mentioned, and that will be discussed again later on as well. I have also welcomed members in regards to the topics which are listed as well. If there are any comments or queries, very welcome to email me or contact me as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go on to minute 33, which is notes from task groups. 34, Council Community Fund. 35, Knife Angel. Is that?
Councillor Woodward.
Yes, thanks, Chair. And can I also very remiss of me not to have mentioned that before.
I thought you'd already done it,
and as Councillor Evans has said, good to see a woman in the chair and the first Labour woman in the chair of this council. So I'm delighted that that's the case. I won't go over the discussion around the Knife Angel itself, but I want to raise on this particular issue with the chair of the committee concerns around the Community Safety Partnership and also at the visibility of funding. We're told in one of the minutes that the PFCC, the Police Fire and Crime Commissioner, paid for this fire and assessment. But I've got no idea how that assessment is made, and it would be lovely to have some sort of transparency around that. I've also learnt during recent weeks that parish councils aren't involved at all in the Community Safety Partnership. And that seems to me to be a missed opportunity, because parish councils know their patch very well and could certainly supplement the work that police and others are doing in relation to community safety. So I would ask the chair if at some point Overview and Scrutiny can look at the Community Safety Partnership, the way that it's working or not working in some cases, so I'm led to believe. I suspect that he's going to come back to me and say, can you put forward a scoping document? But I thought they'd take this opportunity now to lobby him to make sure we are looking at community safety, because it's such an important issue for the residents that we represent.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Henshaw and then Councillor Cox have similar points on similar.
Madam Chair, could I ask Councillor Norman when the first meeting of the Transport Task Force will be convened? This follows on the question I tabled at October's council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to your new role. I wish you well. Say that the overview and scrutiny minutes are for accuracy. I take Councillor Woodward's point of raising the Community Safety Partnership, and I, in time, would welcome to present a report to scrutiny. But there is a but. I'm shaking it up at the present moment, in the view that certainly in the last few months and at our last meeting, we're wanting to put more gravitas to the what it is about, with discussions with the police and the fire service to give them effective targets that they could be working to, which currently have not been present. And I assure you that we will take everything forward as we can. I will take forward the notion of the parish councils, but obviously with what, I don't know how many we got, 20, 28 parish councils, something like that, 22, so I don't want to muddy the water,
but obviously we would welcome obviously views, and I think those views could be disseminated through to parish councils to obtain them, rather than bringing them to the actual table, because otherwise we're going to have a heck of a forum, and we may not proceed with the agenda. But I welcome the comments of the leader of the opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. So councillor Norman, if you want to respond to those and move us on.
Well, obviously, I'm not going to respond to councillor Cox, and I don't know why he was answering questions directed at me, but that's a matter for him. As far as the community safety is concerned, I'll be asking for a briefing note initially, and then certainly we can have a look at the topic form. I think you'll fill in, and please use your own printer, not mine. And then we can consider that, because it is an important issue, but I'm sure there's another half a dozen important issues we have as well, and we have to manage our work programme, but that's a matter for the committee to agree to. But certainly I'll look into that and give a formal response, if you like, at the next scrutiny committee in the work plan. So I'll do that. The same applies, Chair, to Councillor Henshaw there. We've got 4 task groups at the moment, with plus 2 more possible ones. One is on transport, depends how wide that briefing might be, and the other one on health matters. So it's just a matter of fitting these things in. So what I said to scrutiny at the overall scrutiny committee is that we will look at that. We've had the requests in from Councillor Henshaw properly done, and we have to weigh it up against the others. But so it's not been ignored. It's just a matter of fitting it in, and hopefully when we have the training programme in January that officers are trying to sort out, that we made clear that you do have to be realistic about what you can do and when. But it's not forgotten, it's certainly not ignored. And I do know that it's of interest to other people, so that will be considered in due course. Thank you, Chair.
So there are more minutes to do, aren't there?
That's right, yeah. And right, so item 35, the Knife Angel, which by the way is now in Walsall, although they didn't mention Lichfield when he got there, mentioned everywhere else except Lichfield. Item 36, the medium-term financial strategy.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, be the person.
I am a member of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and I was particularly challenging on this item, and I just wanted to make a few points here. Councillor Pullen spoke earlier about the first 7 months of working together and the challenges and scrutiny that has occurred. And I'd like to invite my fellow members to continue to do that. Because of that, we make robust decisions. Things I noted, and I want the rest of the members to be aware of. Although no public health budget was put into the medium-term financial strategy, this council did spend money last year, and it was written there on public health. And I thank you for that, and I wish that to continue. I will also continue to challenge, though, when you apply money, well, do you need to question it? I personally challenged the £400,000 for paddle tennis, and I will continue to do that to make sure it's value for money for our residents, when some of them cannot safely walk in the streets with their children, and yet we can have paddle tennis. So I invite my members to continue to scrutinise things like this, and I thank Councillor Pullen saying this is a good thing for us to do, and it makes us a stronger council for it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you're now on the next meeting, is it?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, to be honest with you, I thought the £400,000 of the paddle tennis was the cost of flooding it due to the misspelling of paddle, which the cabinet member has mentioned a few times, but obviously I've been forced to do some research since then. Yes, please, scrutiny is not just the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, it's scrutiny here in this council chamber, but preferably before that at other committees, and certainly members can lobby other members that are on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on particular questions they would like asked there. I would urge them to do that, but I don't think it's necessarily a question for me to say other than I would agree with Councillor Brooks's comments, and then hopefully others will actually do their best to look at those reports and try and get to the bottom of things. You agree? Yeah. 37, work programme. 38, exclusion of the press and public, and 39, the confidential notes from the task groups. And then on the 30th of November, the special meeting, which had one agenda, present apologies 40, item 41, declaration of interests, Item 42, minutes of the previous meeting. And then 43, the exclusion of the press and public. And although that's there, it was quite late in the meeting that we were able to do the exclusion of the press and public, because I'm very grateful to members who were very careful not to go into the confidential section where it was not needed. That it was needed, but it wasn't needed in that first section. And I'm very grateful for members. I mean, I was nervous. I'm sure officers are a bit nervous in case something happened. And there's been a lot of praise about that particular scrutiny committee, and thanks goes to my members who actually did scrutinise. I mean, we've had further meetings since, but did scrutinise the issues surrounding the cinema. As far as I'm concerned, I did mention it at the meeting. We all want it is a whole council has support for it, but it is we do need to get it right. And there's page after page there of questions, and the time was given to us by the chief executive from afar, and the section 151 officer. We're still not caught out yet, but one day I hope to do that. Answering all those questions. So I'm very grateful on the record here for the members that were there supporting that. And that's the end. So I can, you know.
Thank you, Councillor Wilcox. I mean, we are discussing the cinema as a separate item, aren't we? So I don't know. But anyway, Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you. I just wanted to express my gratitude to the process of scrutiny at that meeting. I think it was one of the better pieces of scrutiny I've ever seen and witnessed in this council. And I'll take my hat off to all the members involved and the chair in actually the way they conducted that meeting. It was an excellent piece of work, and it's what scrutiny is all about. So I hope that will continue with the chair. It did with the previous chair, I have to say, but I'm sure it will continue with this chair too. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We move on now to agenda item 8, the Auditor and Members Standards Committee, and I'm calling on Councillor Ho.
Thank you, Chair, and I extend my felicitations on your election to the Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Audit and Member Standards Committee meeting held on the 28th of November 2023 be received and, where necessary, approved and adopted.
Thank you. And then a seconder, please.
Yes, Chair, I second the minutes.
Thank you. Now, I don't quite understand this, why Councillor Norman reads out his minutes one by one, but everyone else, I do it, so I'll do it. So that was 20 was apologies for absence, 21 declarations of interest, 22 was the minutes, and then 23, 24 are audits going back quite a long time. And Councillor Robertson or Councillor Woodward. Councillor Roberts.
Oh, I'm going to pay for that later. Just a very quick one. The public sector audits landscape is challenging, I think is the polite word that we're supposed to use. There are a lot stronger words that I probably shouldn't use on the record to describe that. We currently here are looking at audit findings for 21, 22, 22 and 23. So we've got 2 years here. I'm fully aware actually that there are other authorities out there who have not had audited accounts for an even longer period than that. That is a huge concern to me, and I'm sure it's a huge concern to people across the chamber and actually across the country who actually care that public money is being spent in the right way and there are adequate safeguards in place to ensure that it's done so. Given the difficulties that we have found and the difficulties that the wider sector is finding itself, I wonder whether the chair has considered writing to the Secretary of State for the levelling up housing in communities and political slogans about ensuring that the public sector audits landscape stops being so challenging, because we can't continue to be in a situation where public authorities that are spending public money are not able to get these qualifications and get these reports back from auditors, and particularly external auditors. Thank you.
Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just want to reinforce the point really that Councillor Robertson's made. I think we've seen minute number 23 and then again minute number 26, sort of delays and confusion that are being heaped on local authorities by central government. And to say that it's an unhappy relationship, I think Councillor Robertson suggested that Councillor Ho might write to Mr. Gove. Can I also suggest he contacts our local MPs, our 2 MPs for this district, to advise them of the difficulties that local see, not just in these two areas, but in many other areas. And hopefully we can get them on board and get more members of Parliament understand exactly what local councils are experiencing at the moment. Chair.
Thank you. Do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for those questions. Councillor Robertson, you are absolutely right. It is a very challenging environment, the public sector auditing. And yes, I will write to, I've put Councillor Gove, but it's actually obviously not. But yes, I will write to him. Councillor Woodward, I have spoken to our MP and made him aware of the situation as well. Apologies, I've spoken to the Lichfield District MP, Michael Fabricant. Well, I've spoken to Michael Fabricant MP about the situation.
Chair, can a point of clarification? Can I ask that Councillor Ho also speaks to Sarah Edwards MP, the recently elected Member of Parliament for Tamworth, which covers part of our district as well?
I think he understood that. Yeah.
If I may, Chair, absolutely. I did speak to Michael Fabricant prior to Miss Edwards' election to be the MP, so I'll also speak to her as well. Thank you.
Okay, so there was, item 24 and 25 were the auditors, well, the auditor's annual report. 25 is slightly different. Then there's statement of accounts, again, 26 for 21-22 and 22-23. 28 is a mid-year treasury management report. 29 is LWNTS annual report. And number 30 is the internal audit progress report. Number 31 is the risk management. Thank you, Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of pedantry. It looks like there's a typo under the resolution there. It refers to the counter fraud update on 31, where presumably it should be the risk management update. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, 31, there is a mistake, isn't there? Yeah, and then 32 is the counter fraud update. 33 is the work programme. So can we accept those minutes? Great. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the proceedings of the Planning Committee meetings on the 30th of October, the 27th of November and the 6th of December 2023 be received and, where necessary, approved and adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Chetland, I think, is going to second.
Congratulations on your appointment, Chair. I had to say it. I so second.
Councillor Evans has a point on the minutes.
Thank you, Chair. On the minutes of the Planning Committee on the 30th of October, I noticed that on the planning applications, the names of the sites are not listed, which is unusual, and as they are subsequently are on the other minutes. So I assume that's an oversight, as anybody reading the results on the public site will not be aware of where the application is located.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah.
That's a very valid point, and it may well be an oversight. I would suggest that anybody who had a particular interest in any of those applications could actually go on to the planning portal, Lichfield District Planning Portal, where simply by putting that application number in, it will bring up all the relevant details. But I take your point, Councillor Evans, and I will try and make sure that that mistake, if indeed it is a mistake, is not repeated. Thank you.
Councillor Booker.
Thank you, Chair. The minutes of the 27th of November, item 25, the refusal of the planning at Browns Lane. This is the second time this development has been refused, and I applaud the Planning Council Committee for doing so. I really think this area needs to be discussed with fellow members and the council. This is on the border of Tamworth. There's a lot of history behind it, and I am appealing to those who have an interest in this to out of this meeting to get together and talk about this area. But thank you for the refusal, and I think there's more work that we can do there. Thanks.
Thank you. I think I'm just supposed to go through the minutes page by page. So if anyone has anything on the first page, which is 39, second page, which is page 40 of the, the collective papers, page 41, page 42, then the one item meeting on the 6th of December, yeah, you're paid. Councillor Pullen.
If I may, Chair, thank you. It's just to draw attention to the planning application at item number 29, the National Memorial Arboretum, and just to congratulate them on the outstanding work that they're doing to extend the National Memorial Arboretum. I think we're so fortunate within the district to have the nation's centre of remembrance right here within our district. And I think the work that our officers in particular have done with the National Memorial Arboretum to bring this extension alive has been exemplary. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm sure we all agree with that, and we hope it's not flooded, but anyway. Oh, right. Oh, it is flooded. Well, anyway, they know what to do with it. We're on to item 10, I think, minutes of the Employment Committee, and I'll call on Councillor Sonia Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair, and I give you my congratulations. I move that the proceedings of the Employment Committee on the 23rd of November 2023 to be received and, when necessary, approved and adopted.
Thank you. And Councillor Hill. Thank you. And again, Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of quick questions for the Chair on this, if I may. The first one in relation to the Foundation Living Wage. I will again place on record my support for making sure that every single employee of this authority earns a wage that they can live on. And I thank councillors of all colours for our absolute commitment to making sure that our most important asset are valued correctly. The question that I'd like to ask in relation to that is, have we got a further update? Have the Joseph Rowntree, the Foundation Living Wage Foundation managed to get us over the line so we can get that accreditation sorted? And then the final question is in relation to discussions that we had regarding a disability pay gap report. I know in the meeting you said you were waiting for an email to come back from officers, whether that email has found its way to you, and how far along we're getting with our progression on that point.
Yeah,
And does Council Benesivilas please say your name?
Thank you, Chair. My name's actually spelt wrong on there, but I would also like to ask.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
yes,
it is.
Yeah. I might consider going back to my maiden name of Jones, but hey ho. So, could I ask, please, the chair of the committee, when dates are having to be changed for the committee? Could we just ask the committee members whether they can make those dates? It just seems to be that we have a date. We've already got pre-planned, as we all have, with other commitments, both professionally and personally. If we could just have the dates go out. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't know if you want to, if it's your job to,
you know, that it
Thank you. I mean, I think supposed to, whether there's just anything else on these minutes, Foundation Living Wage, disciplinary policy, and 12 was, I guess, the flex retirement report. No. Okay, then, so can we take these minutes as received and adopted? Great, thank you. The next one then is appointments to committees. And councillor Pullen will speak on this item.
That is correct. I will, Chair. Thank you. Uh, Chair, I submit the following revised appointments to the committee's chair. Thank you.
Councillor Woodward.
In the light of your election as chair, for which I congratulate you again, because I missed out the first time, can I just make a couple of amendments to the committee membership, please? I think the advice has been that as chair of the council, it's probably as well that you're not on committees. Can I remove Councillor Sharon Taylor from the audit committee and replace with myself? Then can I remove Councillor Anne Hughes from the standards committee and replace with Councillor Sharon Taylor? And then remove Councillor Anne Hughes yourself from the disciplinary committee and add Councillor Diane Evans. I'll work on other committees, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Are those modifications, Councillor Cox?
There we go. Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second Councillor Pullen's recommendations, those amendments.
Thank you. So we've got, yeah, so we can move on then to item 12, which is why we haven't got anything to look at. Yeah, Councillor Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. I've got plenty to say. Thank you. Yes, this item 12, the interim policy N3 biodiversity, protected species and their habitats. Chair, I took the decision to withdraw this interim policy from Cabinet, and then subsequently this now is not coming to full council this evening. The reason being that central government have released some draft secondary legislation on biodiversity net gain last week. There are 8 pieces of information that we need to digest. It's important that we get this policy absolutely right before we put it before Cabinet or before this full council. So the anticipation is that it will come hopefully early in 2024. Can I, while I have the opportunity, just say we are looking for a representative from the rural division, somebody with passion, drive and commitment and enthusiasm to join the exciting new summit working group that's been created at the beginning of January. So if anyone from the rural areas has really got a passion about climate change, ecology and making the world a safer place and a better place and a healthier place for us all, please let me know. We will have representatives from Burntwood Town Council, the City Council, as well as members from this made up of this committee, and also Councillor Norman as he chairs the Climate Action Group. Really exciting, great piece of work. We don't want passengers, we want people who are committed to actually working to deliver this summit at the end of the spring. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Woodward had a point on that.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Councillor Wilcox never, ever undersells the work that he's doing on climate change. But I just rise to make the point that, again, on climate change funding, it's elsewhere in the reports, on biodiversity, on issues such as food waste, again, as I've said to Councillor Howe previously, the government are not giving the solid ground on which local authorities can work. So the numbers of uncertainty, numbers of delays, Wilcox, we've also joined with Councillor Howe in raising those issues with our members, plural, of Parliament. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think, did Councillor Cross want to say?
All right, just a question for Councillor Wilcox. This seems a very good proposal that you're putting forward, Councillor Wilcox, but are you aware that the forward plan has shown it as approved?
Thank you, Councillor Cross. I didn't know that it was showing that it on the forward plan that had been approved. So we'll get that amended and put right for the so it reflects what's actually happened, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll move on now to item 13, a cinema for Lichfield District, and Councillor Andy Smith is going to speak on this item.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm sorry, I'm going to congratulate you again because I had it written down. So
Okay.
I am very pleased to be bringing this paper to full council. It is the last step, other than planning, I've written in brackets, in a very detailed process to have our council have a part in place shaping to enhance our district, while still making a financial investment with a potential return. Chair, this paper has already been through an excellent, as people have said tonight already, ONS process, then cabinet, and an all councillor information session, as well as many other requests and responses for information from individual members. So I won't go back into the whole detail of paper, as it's been through all those processes already, other than to say that I'm asking council today to agree to the recommendation laid out in section 2 of the report. What I would like to say, Chair, is I do believe that this project is an excellent example of our new style of a no overall control council, working extremely well together to bring excellent improvements to Lichfield District. From our scrutiny process to opposition shadowing, leadership meetings and other comms, this project is now coming to fruition. If council agree to this recommendation in the paper today, this really will be an excellent project, massively add to the entertainment, economy and general well-being of our district's residents. To that end, I would like to thank every member of this council for their input in getting us to where we are today. Chair, I will now sit down to allow debate. I so propose.
Thank you. Is this proposal seconded? Thank you.
Yes, Chair, and it would be remiss for me not to congratulate you either at this point. However, I do second. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. I should tell, of course, some of these items are, some items connected to the cinema are in the confidential agenda. So I'll ask councillors to be very careful in what they say in the open part of the meeting, touch on the confidential matters. And we'll also need to make a decision about whether we're able to vote on the proposal now or whether we need to take more consideration of the confidential matters before we make a final decision. So having said that, can call on people who'd like to speak. Councillor Robertson, then Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chair. I think I can answer that query about whether we can dispose of the recommendations in public or private session. Having looked at the confidential items which are available to this council, but we haven't received for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, there are some significant questions that I feel I would need to ask before being able to draw a consideration, particularly in relation to recommendation 2.1. So on that basis, I would very strongly request that we dispose of, particularly the vote on recommendation 2.1 in private session after those queries have been able to be aired. Going back to the substantive report, though, there are 2 questions which I'd just like to get confirmed through Councillor Smith, if that's all possible. The first one is in relation to the buyout clause that was, I'm struggling to find my place in the papers, I do apologise. It's paragraph 3.17 of the Overview and Scrutiny papers in relation to how that buyout clause may function. Scrutiny made a very strong case that we should not try to tie the hands of a future council at this point and make sure that we put that clause in, but we make sure that both options remain available to us. The first question is to ensure that the papers here do leave that option open for council at a later date. And then the second one relates to if council at that point were to choose to go for option B, whether there was any consideration that could be made about taking in 1% of the shareholding to ensure that for any additional sum that the council was required to pay, we did gain a controlling interest in the remaining LLP. Thank you.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome this proposal, and I mean welcome it. I, with 1 or 2 members, but have been on the council for some number of years now, and this is the nearest we've been to delivery. It means we are going to deliver it, and to me, I welcome that, because there's been so many promises over the years. We all know the history. We can all dwell on the history, and I accept that. But we've got to look forward, and this is forward thinking, and this is provision for the district. And I would certainly be happy to welcome it. I do echo in one respect, Councillor Robertson, if for a decision, if that's what he feels. I think it's appropriate, and I wouldn't wish to close that down. So I support that. But Chair, well excited.
Thank you. Councillor Ray and then Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, when I sort of started looking at this agenda item, initially I did have some concerns about why Evolve wanted this buyout clause. But having reviewed and just discussed it in detail, what was a very productive ONS meeting, I feel that it doesn't reflect a lack of confidence of Evolve, the owner of the Three Spa Shopping Centre in the cinema. And actually, there's some real positives which are drawn out in the ONS, in the paper that's before us tonight. The operators signing up to a 25-year lease. A number of the food and beverage outlets have pre-let discussions are well advanced. So that shows confidence, that their confidence in the venture and in the success of the cinema. And then just standing back as councillors who represent this district, I feel that a cinema would work well in this city. There is demand from our residents of all ages for a cinema, and our community tells us that. So that is positive. And also, as Councillor Smith said, I do believe councillors do have a role in trying to facilitate projects and improve the infrastructure and the leisure facilities in our district. If the council is prudent with its finances, for what I've seen, I'm seeing a healthy contingency in the budget, and the bulk of the funding for this buyout would not be borrowed, would be funded by other council resources. Now, Councillor Robertson has raised a point which I think I would like to hear that discussed in confidential before I make my final decision. So I certainly think that we should have the vote in confidential because of what the point that Councillor Robertson has raised.
Councillor Ball.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm afraid I'm going to congratulate and welcome you to your role as well. I thought I was going to be doing that later in the meeting and probably one of the last to do it, but I'm taking the opportunity to do it now. My comment is about the Scrutiny Committee, where we did debate this at some length and we made some suggestions, some of which Councillor Robertson has referred to, and we will probably discuss during the closed session later on. But I think it's regrettable, frankly, that the report has not changed much after that Scrutiny Committee. 1.3 still talks about the buyout clause, about committing the council to buyout. That was not what was discussed at Scrutiny. At Scrutiny, we had a clear decision and guidance from the Cabinet and senior officers that it would be either or, as it's mentioned later on in the report. So I think it's regrettable at that early stage. It suggests that we would be committing to buyout at this point. I think that's unfortunate.
Just as a point of information there, Chair, please. The reason it says introducing a new clause is that because the other clause, the option to buy out, was already in the agreement. There is an introduction of a new clause, which wasn't previously there before. The other clause, which was the option to buy out, already existed. So there is only one clause being added, which the executive summary clarifies perfectly and is made further clear at 3.17. So there is no misleading there. There is not that there was anything that ONS added extra there. It is simply a matter of fact that there.
I can't see, because Councillor Smith want to respond to some of the points on it. Oh, sorry, Councillor Strachan.
Oh, what a terrible shame. Dealing firstly then with Councillor, I accept that that's a very attractive position for the council to take. However, I'm not sure it's a practical one to take, because that additional 1% would give the council controlling share, you correctly identify that, would then leave Evolve Estates with an asset to dispose of where somebody else, an unknown, a third party, ourselves, holds that controlling share. And I would suggest that that would make that asset effectively unsaleable and so fatally harm its value as to hamstring Evolve Estates in how they can operate. Therefore, I don't believe it's in the spirit of partnership dealing for us to take that stance. Indeed, I'd respectfully submit, Chair, after welcoming you to your seat, I'd respectfully submit that that is, in fact, fatal to this if we were to insist on that. Secondly, Councillor Robertson has raised a query about potentially not tying the hands of future councils if we make an agreement that will require action 2 years post-completion. That is the strongest argument that anybody's ever put for short-termism on the floor of this council that I've ever heard. And if every council took that, particularly ones that don't have all-out elections, nothing would ever get done. And so, Chairman, I think at some point we have to grasp the nettle, we have to take action, and we have to commit to delivering what we've been saying that we were going for 17 years. And so, frankly, I can accept the caution, and given the values involved, I completely embrace Councillor Robertson's caution. But I'm afraid that neither of those points, I think, could be acceptable if we're actually going to deliver this. Yes, of course, you have a right to rebut. Finally, on Councillor Ray's point on prudence, again, I agree. In fact, were it not for the fact that my traditionally very pessimistic chief financial officer is actually happy with this, I may have raised eyebrows myself, but we are taking a very careful and a very prudent approach. This is funded with Lichfield's money and not borrowed money, and this is being delivered in, frankly, the safest way I think a capital project can be delivered, given the number of contingencies, fail-safes, and other sinking funds that are being built into it. And so I thank Paul Ray for recognising, sorry, Councillor Ray, for recognising the approach that we're taking, and I hope that he'll find himself able to support it when we do come to a vote, whether in public or in private. I did see Councillor Robertson indicate, and of course I've named him, he has a right to reply.
Councillor Robertson, reply.
Thank you, Chair. It's seldom that myself and Councillor Strachan agree so completely on this item, but in reference to his points, one of the things that this clause does is commit us to make up any difference in the value that Evolve are able to get. But what I'm suggesting should be 49% and £3.5 million. So it will not affect the value of that remaining 49% because we have already set it by virtue of what is written in the clause. So the argument that somehow us taking that controlling interest would somehow devalue what Evolve are looking at is a nonsense, because in the clause we've set a floor of a value that it cannot go below. So I don't understand the point that he's trying to make in relation to us taking that 1%. It's very clear for me, and I did say this at overview and scrutiny, and I will repeat the issue now, that if we are required to pay an additional sum in order to top this up, and the council makes the decision at that point by the entirety of it, and we prefer to continue in a limited liability partnership, we don't know what other partner we are going to get. And actually, by taking a controlling interest, we will enable ourselves to make sure that this development is run for the people of the district and not solely for commercial gain. That was very widely accepted and not challenged at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And indeed, one very senior officer did mention that's a good point when raised it. The second item in relation to short-termism, all I am asking for is the clarity that the clause that we are going to introduce will allow us to maintain that decision should we choose to make it. Us not yet deciding whether we are going to go full bore ahead with purchasing the entire asset or potentially making the decision later down the line doesn't prevent the clause from going in, doesn't prevent us from making the changes on the medium-term financial strategy. It is not a wrecking amendment. It is a clarification that the documentation that comes before us has been updated to reflect the wishes of overview and scrutiny, and B, allows this council to remain as liquid as possible. It is a requirement that we will need to increase make the changes to the MTFS as is indicated in the report, but the actual decision to commit all or some all or a lower value of that money can be taken at a later date, provided that the work that this council does doesn't preclude us from making that change should we choose to do so at the point where it is appropriate to make that decision. I am not arguing against recommendation 2.2. I am adding an additional layer of flexibility. I'm seeking to ensure that we have that additional flexibility to ensure that we can guard against opportunity cost whenever we get to the point where this is able to be made, this decision is able to be made. It's absolutely not a wrecking amendment and a wrecking query. It is to absolutely ensure that we are protecting the assets of this council and protecting our liquidity so that should we choose to make a different decision collectively in an unspecified period of time in the future, that we have that choice available to us. So on those two items, I would quite wholeheartedly disagree with much of what Councillor Strachan has said there.
Right, so should we have no one else but Councillor Smith to respond for the time being, or should we leave it till the confidential section? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to put some clarity on Councillor Robertson's question, I can assure you that those comments were taken into account. So to be really clear on this, the new clause we're talking about, as detailed in 3.17 of the report, 2 years after the completion of the cinema, that gives this council the option to do one of two things. Okay, to be really clear on that, and he says that quite clearly, A and B. Yeah, the first option is we pay the 3.5 million to 3.9 million, and we buy out Evolve Estates part of that deal. Okay. The second option, to be really clear, and that definitely will be on the table 2 years after completion, is the council does not want to commit to that 3.5 to 3.9 million, and then we get a new part of that. Now, to address the 51 versus 49%, I really understood and got and thought the logic was sensible on that in the scrutiny meeting. Having discussed with the chief exec and other officers, that's not something I should put in the contract at this point in time. However, let's think about this. We do have full control here, right? So come to the point where 2 years after completion, we have to buy out and get 100% of the deal. We can then, if we wish, if we don't like the partner that's coming up, we have the option to then sell 31, 40, 25, whatever percent we like of our shareholding and control whatever shareholding we like left and choose our partner. So we have that choice at that point in time, yeah? So we're not really committing the council either way on that. But just to clear that up, Councillor Robertson, you are quite right. That's what we said, no less about the two choices, and we definitely have those two choices. The paper has been changed off the back of ONS comments in a number of places. I have 6 points here from the chief exec where we've updated and highlighted slightly, and I'm confident we've addressed every point that the ONS committee raised. I took the list off Councillor Norman at the end of cabinet, and I instruct officers to go through that and make sure we'd dealt with every single point. Councillor Cox had no questions. Councillor Ray, yeah, I agree with you, and Councillor Ball, I think we've dealt with that. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do you still want to go to Councillor?
Yeah, I absolutely cannot address my concerns regarding recommendation 2.1 until we're in the confidential session.
I think then we have to leave it here until we go to the confidential agenda. Thank you for that. We'll go on now then to item 14, which is the motion that's been submitted by Councillor Ball. And I think there was a typescript of it on everyone's desk. So I'll call on Councillor Ball to submit.
Yes, Chair. There's an amendment, a few amendments to the original submission, which was on the council agenda. That was following a discussion on the phone with the monitoring officer on Friday and with an email from him later on. I understand that those suggested amendments came from the leader of the council. That was, or perhaps from the cabinet member, I'm not sure. Now, I have tried to include some of those, but not all of them, and I'll explain why as I go through the motion. We all know that things are tough for people right now. We have a cost of living crisis, rents are soaring, mortgages are soaring, prices in the shops are soaring. We had a budget statement, or an autumn statement last year, which wrecked the economy. we have to do something locally to try and make things better for folk. Now, I'm hoping we can get all party consensus on this evening, because this is a motion about helping individuals, about helping communities get better housing, better quality housing, more affordable housing, and housing that they can be secure in into the future. The first point is asking the leader to write to our local MPs, plural, asking them to push the Chancellor to bring forward the unfreezing of the local housing allowance, which is what is used to pay universal credit and housing costs and the housing benefit towards people's rents, to bring that forward to immediately rather than waiting to April. Now, the Chancellor's been able to do that as far as the national insurance reduction has been concerned, so why not with this item as well? And I think it's right as a community that we ask him to do that, because that will mean that people can feel secure in their homes. We don't want people in a situation where they have to choose between heating their homes or paying their rent or feeding their families. So if we are able to get our local MPs to push the Chancellor to do that, he's already done that for the national insurance contributions. Why not for this one as well? I'd like to thank the leader for signing the District Council Network letter to get that started moving. I'd ask for a further step now to make that happen immediately rather than in April. The second item, where I have included at the end pretty much all of the suggestions that the leader made in item 2 about committing as part of the development of the new Lichfield District Local Plan to reviewing the approach to securing affordable housing based on sound evidence. I certainly agree with that as far as the new local plan is concerned, but why not try and do something now within the framework of our existing local plan? At the moment, I don't think we've ever achieved our ambition of 40% affordable housing and on any site across the district. We achieved 37% on a recent site. That's not 40. It's pretty close, but it's not 40. I know in my first term as a council, the percentages were in the low teens, and that's just not acceptable. They're improving now, but history tells us that they might deteriorate at some point later. So let's put something in place that ensures that they don't. Our current so-called dynamic model uses values based on West Midlands generally, which are lower than Lichfield values. So you start from a lower value point. There's a ceiling on the values that can be generated in the model we've got, but no ceiling on costs. What that means in practice is developers can claim we can't afford to do this because the costs are higher than values. And that is built into the system we're using now. So let's try and change that within the format of the current plan without waiting to the new plan in several years' time. It may be difficult. Some may say it's impossible, but that has never stopped me trying to do something. And I think the council should be ambitious in its aims to provide decent, affordable housing across the district. I've deliberately put affordable housing in inverted commas because I don't believe the current government's definition of affordable housing is in any way affordable to many, many people. The current definition is 80% of market rents. Now, market rents in Lichfield are considerably high, and 80% of that is pretty tough for people to afford, particularly with the local housing allowance having been suppressed for at least 3 years at a period of very rapid inflation. So I make no apology of putting inverted commas, and I think we need to be looking at social rents. Social rents are typically 50% of market rents. That makes them properly affordable. And going further, we want to suggest that we work with local housing associations, involve many councillors and staff and other outside bodies on this in item 3 towards encouraging the use of the Joseph Rowntree Foundation living rent model That's rents based on around a third of local household income, which would make them genuinely affordable to people in need. They probably wouldn't need to call on universal credit or on housing benefit if those rents were set at that level. If there are means of doing that, we should be encouraging it. So this as a package is aiming to provide decent housing, more of it, and more affordable. And I commend it to this council.
Thank you very much indeed. This motion seconded.
Chair, I'd like to formally second the motion. I'd like to formally second the motion. Would you like to speak later in the debate?
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm very happy to support all the points in this motion. Just like to mention a couple of things. I'm very glad that Councillor Ball put the inverted commas around affordable. Affordable is as affordable does. 80% of market rent means that a lot of housing so designated in Lichfield, especially in the city, is still very often out of the reach of key workers, particularly those who have to live near their work in the centre of Lichfield. It's also unaffordable for families on low incomes and younger people. So I hope that all future discussions arising from this motion are going to consider seriously what actually constitutes affordable in these circumstances. I'm also very glad to see that Councillor Ball recommends working with other relevant parties, such as NPOs, non-profit organisations, and charities who focus on housing issues and housing problems. And this will help us to develop our own council focus on this area. We should also be working, as Councillor Ball suggests, with local housing associations to help provide and implement the practical solutions to the problems that we're facing. So shared ownership schemes and programmes such as the Roundtree Living Rent, which is mentioned, they're intended to keep social housing costs affordable in a genuine sense, and they can and should be part of the housing mix in this district. This will make Lichfield a model for other councils throughout the country. So I urge all councillors to vote in favour of this motion. It'll put us firmly on the path towards a housing policy which will benefit all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell.
Thank you, Chair. May I be the final councillor to congratulate you. Welcome to your role. Thank you, Councillor Ball, for bringing this motion to council. It's clearly a good motion, and I thank you for making your amendments based on the comments from the leader. I know you take this very seriously, Councillor Ball, and it's commendable your motion to council today. As you know, I share your passion for the subject, and I'm sure many councillors here today also do. Recently, I was proud to take part in Lichfield District's first homelessness conference, held right here in this building. Colin Ball was amongst those present. We brought together a whole host of different experts, community groups, providers, all playing their part in preventing local people from being homeless in this district. An important aspect of the conference was the amount of experience in this field that was brought together. One delegate alone had spent more than 50 years working to support the homeless, while another 8 had more than 30 years experience in the sector. I found it rewarding, and I hope Councillor Ball did as well. The conference also welcomed the new generation of people committed to supporting this vital cause. And there was an amazing 700 years experience in the room. And the reason I'm telling you this is because we take this issue very seriously as a council. The officers involved in the conference did themselves and this council proud as well. We know homelessness isn't always obviously visible to us in the room, because we're not just talking about rough sleepers. Homelessness can be brought about through a variety of circumstances, from domestic abuse, financial issues, family fallouts, to name but a few. So as we go forward with the development of the new local plan, which I'm pleased to say this council voted for at the last full council meeting, we'll take all options into consideration to ensure that we have the best possible housing strategy for Lichfield District. I will work with officers to review our approach to securing affordable housing, and I completely understand Councillor Ball's comments about affordable housing. We'll of course look at the sound evidence, but I do take his points on board. And in due course, I'd like to see a cross-party local plan working group set up, and I will advise councillors about the formation of that group, hopefully in the new year, once we get it all sorted. So Councillor Ball, of course, also shares my desire to work closely with housing associations. The providers that we have in this district play an important role for our residents, but I would also like to hold them to account more, and Councillor Ball knows my opinion of that. In conclusion, I am happy to support Councillor Ball's motion, and I hope colleagues across the chamber will join me in supporting it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Councillor Pullen wants to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I can't disagree entirely with this motion, and I think the aims and objectives that Councillor puts forward are laudable, and I think, as Councillor Farrell said, it's something that affects all of us, or those that we know, in terms of trying to secure better housing and better quality housing for all of our residents right across the district. And I know that both Councillor Farrell and indeed many councillors right across this chamber are working very hard to do just that. What I would say is that the motion, I think, urges us to look at all of the available levers open to us to be able to improve the situation within the district. What I would say is we really ought to be careful about the law of unintended consequences. It's a very incredibly powerful law, and where items such as the living rent model edge towards being a form of rent control, that does make me very, very nervous. I was with a wonderful lady earlier on this year who said that rent controls are a short-term fix that would lead to an increase in homelessness. And it was a lovely pleasure to meet Lisa Nandy, the Housing Secretary for Labour, who said that very thing. So I think there's mixed views on this. We absolutely ought to look at all options available to us. The aims and objectives are spot on. I think quite rightly we ought to have a cross-party view of which of those levers available to us are the most appropriate ones to pull at which time. But I don't think that we can, in all good faith, oppose this motion this evening, Councillor Ball.
Thank you. I think we've got Councillor Booker, then Councillor Paul Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am a new councillor here, and there's some language in this chamber that I don't always understand, and I'm doing my best to understand it. There are some levels of different governance and Whitehall and chancellors, and I'm freezing things, and I'm doing my best to keep up, but I do support this, and I would ask and urge my fellow councillors, even if you don't understand it, what's been spoken in Passionate tonight, what's come out to me is we want to achieve things that look impossible. We want to be ambitious. We want to work together, and I want to be ambitious, and that's how we will achieve great things in our district and for our residents, by being ambitious. So even if we don't fully understand all the nuances of all the things that are raised, please be ambitious in this council and in this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, then Councillor Evans, then Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Chair, and may I be the first to pointedly observe your request earlier. I'm speaking partly on behalf of myself and on behalf of Councillor Sharon Taylor, who can't be here at the moment. But hot on the heels of the creation of a food justice champion by this council, it's fantastic to see the collegiate working from both sides of the bench, moving these issues forward in our thinking and our actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ray. Sorry.
Yes, I was just going to speak briefly just to support what's being said. I support the motion, and with strong sentiment, an approach of working closely with housing associations. That is the way we solve our housing crisis in our country. And I just want to say this issue is real. Us as councillors, we know this issue is real in our community. We know of young people in our community who are brought up in this area, but then cannot afford to live in this area and then have to move away. This is their home city. Burnley is their hometown. That can't be right. And it's also real. I won't be unlike other councillors who are helping residents who are in overcrowded properties. And I'm helping a resident at the moment who is living in a shed, sleeping in a shed, because they don't qualify for statutory homelessness support from this council. So support the motion. This is a real issue and this is something that we as a council can do to try and move our policy forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Evans, did you have?
Yes, Chair, frequently on planning, it has been necessary to try and achieve the correct percentage of affordable housing on larger developments, but this hasn't always happened. And this motion highlights now how important it is to stick to the correct percentage and not reduce it. And it's particularly important when developers come back and ask for a reduction sometimes in affordable houses in order that they can make the most out of it. So I do think we need to ensure that in future we stick rigidly to the percentage that we should be doing and maybe above it, but it's certainly important to ensure that everybody has the right to a decent home.
Thank you, Councillor Braga.
Thank you, Chair. I'll only speak briefly as I think there's quite a bit of agreement in the room. For item 2, I do think it's really important. There are so many people who are struggling to get onto the housing ladder at the moment that we actually have more affordable housing in this plan, and we're looking to the new plan. Hopefully there are more things we can do, including the social housing. And for item 3, I think it's terrible that there are some people and some families that actually cannot afford to live in some of the more expensive areas of this district. And we need people living and working across the district, not being priced out. And so I do think it's really important that we do what we can as a council to address that.
Thank you. Does anyone have new points to make? Go on then.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be as quick as possible. Just in relation to point 3 in particular, I would like to speak in favour of really looking closely at a living rent model. Notwithstanding Councillor Pullen's point about rent controls, I think it's very easy to look at one isolated statement and not look at the package of what things are doing. Having just said that, this is an entire motion, all of it I'd like to support, but specifically in relation to point 3. Local housing allowance is broken. And I don't think you'll find many people that will agree it's not. I don't know how many members in this room are aware of how that is calculated. Local housing allowance is set at the lowest third of rents in our local housing allowance area, which is mid-staffs. Now that includes almost all of Lichfield District. A small part of Lichfield District does sneak into the Birmingham calculations, where the numbers are slightly different, but for the vast majority of our residents, it's the mid-staffs area. That mid-staffs area is not just Lichfield District. It includes the entirety of Tamworth Borough. It includes actually quite a large part of Warwickshire. It includes the overwhelming majority, if not all, of Cannock District. It includes parts of South Staffordshire. It includes the overwhelming majority, if not all, of Stafford District. It in fact extends as far as Trentham up the A51. The decision that was made a few years ago to change the calculation from being away from half of local rents in that area to 1/3 of local rents in that area was ruinous for many of the families in our district, because that change overnight meant that a lot of because of the way that the calculation is worked, and I'm trying not to go too technical to avoid people glazing over at this hour of night, means that actually a lot of the housing we find ourselves in this district will almost automatically come higher up the land values and the property values than 1/3 of that gigantic area. So simply relying on local housing allowance as it is currently set is what we are required to do by legislation. But I think putting ourselves in a position where we can consider this and we are prepared to go that extra step further can be something that can be so powerful for some of the most vulnerable families in our district. So particularly on the living rent model, whilst we're not suggesting that everything's going to be solved overnight in one discussion and everything's going to be amazing, having that as part of the discussion and working towards that can only be something positive for actually the reason that we're here, which is to represent people in our district. So on that basis, I would like to commend that third point. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be brief in standing to say that I do support the motion. I support that Councillor Farrell has made in supporting the motion. So I'll be happy to go forward with that and I urge all members to do so.
Thank you. No one has spoken against the motion, but I don't know if Councillor Ball or Councillor Woodward want to.
Yeah, Chair, I will exercise my right to respond, but simply to say a big thank you. Spoken this evening, particularly colleagues across the chamber who seem to be embracing this wholeheartedly. So thank you very much, fellow councillors. I think this will make a big difference in people's lives. And I'm happy to work with Councillor Farrell as much as possible to make these wishes a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall I call? I'll call for a vote then. So all those in favour? Is anyone against? No. Is there any abstention? No. So that's unanimously passed. Thank you. So we come now to item 15. Yeah, the questions. Yeah, I've got them. And there's 4 questions. The questions and the initial answers have been circulated by email. First one.
Thank you, Chair. I want to just thank Councillor Wilcox for a very detailed response with all the figures that I wanted and more. And he taught me a lot as well in that. So I appreciate that. It is disappointing though to see the it is disappointing to see the lack of or the low rates of prosecution still. I was wondering if Councillor Wilcox, becoming in his post in May, has come up with any new ideas on how to fix this crime, because rural districts like ours and wards like mine are very much affected by this, and it is extremely annoying for my residents.
Thank you, Councillor Rushton, for that. And if he's got any ideas himself, I'd be happy to listen to them. It's always very difficult in sort of this sort of area of flight to actually catch the perpetrators of doing it, unless you can find within whatever's been dumped something that can trace back to the people that dumped it. But I do know that there's some new initiatives that have been thought out by officers that are looking at other areas, other councils, what they do and how they increase the amount of fly tipping. And what I will say is that when we do catch people, we definitely do prosecute them. And we make it known in the public domain that we prosecuted. So I think the more we can do of that, the more we can make people aware that we will prosecute, often does the trick. But if anyone has any ideas of how we could do things differently, then I'm more than happy to look into them, because it is something that belongs on our district. And thank you for the question.
Thank you. The next question is Councillor Ball to Councillor Farrell on the local plan.
Yes, Chair, I have a supplementary. I'd like to thank Councillor Farrell for his answer. I'd like to ask him, the local development scheme he talks about in his answer, he says is going to be published next year. Next year's got 12 months in it. If it's published in January, Farrell's ambitious programme of a 30-month to get a new draft local plan I would submit is what would be happening at that point, rather than the actual local plan. That 2026. If it's published in December next year, then that takes 2027, which is short of the absolute deadline we've got to have an active local plan in place of 2029. So I would ask him when he's going to publish this local development scheme, and when he sees the actual local plan being made, that is assessed by the inspector, gone through all the consultation and approved as a viable local plan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Ball, for that supplementary, and thank you for your enthusiasm. you know, we only voted the last full council to come out, so your excitement is, thank you. In terms of the local development scheme, I'm going to give you some rough timetables now. I didn't want to specifically give you anything because obviously the officers are working hard behind the scenes. Currently, we're in the stage of reviewing the current local plan and the policies and looking to use that evidence base moving forward. I'm hoping that in between January and March 2024, we can do a call for sites, which is almost a soft launch of the new local plan. And then from January to March, again, probably towards the March end of next year, we'll be looking to that LDS, that local development scheme, and the kind of machinery of putting that into place. I'm then hoping that around summer next year, we'll have the initial evidence base for our new local plan. I'm hoping by August that will be complete. And there's some consultation and options that will happen between September and October of 2024. Some further evidence based on the consultations and the ongoing evidence, hopefully by the end of 2024, probably going into early 2025. And then a preferred options consultation towards the end of 2025. I'm hoping that October 2026, we can get to submission date, which of course would be 3 years before this council's deadline of 2029. But I'd like to keep you informed as we go forward. No doubt some aspects of this will go quicker, some will go a bit slower. So in the new year, we should have a bit more clarity. But in terms of your actual question about LDS, I'm hoping March 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. Third question is Councillor Paul Taylor to Councillor Sylvester Hall. So whether you have a supplementary.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. And thank you to the Cabinet member for the response. Unfortunately, neither it nor the data promised will answer my question. I asked about the businesses listed by ward, not the events. Whilst I commend the investment in promoting local economy, anyone visiting the website cannot fail to see the imbalance between Lichfield City businesses and businesses from Burntwood and the villages. It may be that the name itself, Visit Lichfield, does not encourage participation from businesses outside of the city. Can I ask the Cabinet member to provide the data requested of businesses listed by ward? Can I also ask the member whether they think that this expense should rather be borne by Lichfield City Council if it is going to list mostly Lichfield City businesses, or whether we should provide a second website called Visit Burntwood and other websites for the villages and rural areas? Thank you.
I think you put me in an odd position now.
Yes, is the answer. I would like to respond. And I think that that idea that it may well be worth further exploration with regards to who is actually picking up the bill for it. In all seriousness, however, you'll see in the response that we're over 4,000 businesses that received the email inviting those organisations, so not just events, but organisations, be they local businesses, charities, all sorts, to be able to respond. We also gave the offer that if those particular organisations weren't able to upload it directly themselves onto the Visit Lichfield website, that the communications team could help them in doing so. We also put in there as well as a plea for those that do have those local contacts to be able to encourage those organisations to take part in the magical Christmas in future. The last part on that particular question with regards to this physical data, that information will be supplied to you tomorrow in terms of those businesses that have taken through. We started to try and pull some of that together, but in order to make it accessible for everybody, it was better that we waited and we held off with that. I would just add as well that certainly in my capacity in this role and working with my shadow opposition on your side as well, that we've also made some inquiries about meeting with a local Burntwood business in particular. And I would also invite anybody else, please send over those contacts if you think that we can explore them further to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Then the last one is Councillor Braga, also to
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to welcome the responses. That's very positive, but I've got a few follow-ups to that. I welcome the security personnel, but I would ask that more is done to publicise the rules, and particularly some clearer signs. I've spent some time looking at the one when you come into Tamworth Street, and I'm not sure that it says to someone just turning up exactly what it needs to say. And I do think it's important that the disabled parking bays are labelled.
Yeah.
Sorry, this was a follow-up.
No, it's a different question. Yeah, it's question 4. Sorry, I perhaps didn't make that clear.
Yeah. And I think not everybody with limited mobility has a blue badge, and I would ask that there's some publicity given to drop-off points as well that would help with the pedestrianisation. With the taxi issue, the taxi rank.
Point of order, Chair. And accepting we're 7 months into this council, and I'm still learning rules of debate 10 years in. This point to the agenda, we're looking for supplementary questions to the original question that's been asked, not a series of statements about the question that's already been provided.
Okay, I apologise if I've gone off the right. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, don't know, Councillor Silver, it was a 3-part question to start with, wasn't it? So I guess it's got different aspects of supplementaries, but
indeed. And what I would say is that at any point, this is an experimental trial that is continuing and is very much wanting feedback. Whilst we have a consultation due to open again, in the meantime, I would invite any feedback to be passed over, and the pedestrianisation website is absolutely abundant with information, and I think it's quite laid out well in terms of how that information is put across, answering each of the original points as well. We're not just relying on that particular online medium, we are also handing out printed materials to try and best support. But again, absolutely, don't wait until the consultation. There's always an opportunity to get in touch and for residents to do so all the time through the contact details that's on the website. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, thank you very much. We now come to item 16, exclusion of the public and press. We're now coming to a confidential item of business which requires me to read out the following. That as publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be transacted, the public and press need to be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business, which would involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. Thank everyone who has joined us this evening.